I didn't grow up inside golf culture, so when the LIV golf debate exploded, what surprised me wasn't the controversy, it was how quickly everyone became so certain. Certain about who was right, about who was corrupt, and about what golf should be. The more I looked into it, the more it felt like this wasn't really about golf at all. It was about what happens when a very old system gets challenged in public. So this is 3-Putt Paulie, aka the Golf Tech Nerd, where I'm a regular golfer trying to understand the game a little better by asking questions, looking at data, and staying honest about what I don't know. So today's video isn't about picking sides, it's about slowing the conversation down and really unpacking what's going on, especially from the perspective of someone who's still learning the game. So I want to rewind a bit and give you better context about how I actually came to golf, because I think it matters for how I see all of this. I didn't come to golf because I was chasing difficulty or competition or mastery. And I definitely didn't come to golf because I cared about professional golf. I've lived on a golf course for about 20 years. For most of that time, I didn't play at all. I watched people go by. I saw the rhythm of it. Early mornings, late afternoons, people out walking, taking their turn, taking their time, having fun. Eventually, I realized I wanted something different in my life. I wanted something that felt like a break, something that got me outside, something that wasn't tied to work or politics or constant seriousness. I wanted something that could be fun and frustrating in a harmless way, a distraction, not another source of stress. I think I got that wrong. Honestly, I wanted something I could share with my son as well. So golf checked all those boxes. I didn't start playing because I wanted to analyze it. I started playing because it looked relaxing, social, and just hard enough to keep your mind occupied without dragging you into heavy debates, which is why the LIV conversation caught me off guard. I certainly didn't come to golf for politics. I didn't come to golf for moral arguments or power struggles. I came to golf to get away from that stuff. So when LIV golf suddenly became this lightning rod for ethical outrage, institutional loyalty, and very serious debate, it felt jarring, especially from the perspective of someone who was still new, still learning, and mostly just trying to enjoy the damn game. I didn't have a side. I didn't have history. I didn't have emotional baggage tied to the PGA Tour or professional golf culture in general. Now what I had was confusion, because the intensity of the reaction didn't feel proportional to what I was seeing on the surface. It felt emotional, it felt absolute, and it felt like everyone already knew the answer before the conversation even started. I guess that's the world we're in today. Whenever that happens in any domain, it usually means something deeper is being touched. Because from the outside, from the perspective of a normal golfer, this whole thing feels way more complicated than the way it's usually presented. Usually it gets framed as greed versus tradition, or blood money versus integrity, traitors versus loyalists. And the longer I've looked at it, the less that framing makes sense to me. And boy, did I go down the rabbit hole on this one. So this isn't a defense of LIV, and I'm not attacking the PGA. And it's definitely not a morality lecture. It's just me walking through what confused me, what I noticed once I started asking questions, and where I land as an outsider. If you disagree, that's fine. I'm not trying to win anyone over. I just want to slow the conversation down just a little bit. When I first heard about LIV, what struck me wasn't the format or the money, it was the reaction. The speed at which people went from "this is bad for golf" to "this is morally unforgivable" was interesting. Because golf, at least from the outside, has never really marketed itself as a moral enterprise. It's a professional sport, it's a business, it's global, it's corporate. So when the language suddenly shifted to ethics and values and purity, my first thought wasn't, wow, LIV must be uniquely evil. It was, why now? That question kind of stuck with me. So let's be clear about what LIV actually did. They didn't invent money in golf. They didn't invent equality. And they didn't invent questionable sponsorships. What they did was concentrate all of it. One funder, one source, one agenda, very visible, very loud. That's different from the way professional golf, and honestly most global sports, usually operate. Normally, money is diffuse. It comes from sponsors, broadcast partners, advertisers, multinational corporations, and global markets. You don't see one flag or one logo. You don't see one government standing behind the whole thing. But with LIV, you do, and that matters. Not because it creates corruption, but because it makes corruption harder to ignore. And that was the first big aha moment for me. People say, the PGA doesn't take Saudi money. What they usually mean is no Saudi logos, no Saudi-funded events, no direct checks from a sovereign wealth fund. And that's mostly true. But it's not the same thing as saying Saudi or Middle Eastern capital doesn't touch golf at all. Because globally, that money already exists, just indirectly. It flows through multinational companies, media platforms, global sponsors, international tours. It's diluted. It's less visible. It's easier to ignore. LIV didn't introduce dirty money into golf. It introduced undeniable money. And that distinction explains a lot of the reaction. So here's something that confused me as a newer golfer fan. European golf has played events in the Middle East for decades. Dubai, Abu Dhabi, Qatar. State-backed sponsors, government-linked companies. Minimal outrage. That doesn't mean those situations are morally clean. It means golf already made peace with those arrangements because they didn't challenge the center of power. They didn't threaten the PGA. They didn't fracture fields. They didn't rewrite incentives. So again, the question becomes, is the outrage really about the money or about what the money disrupted? So did LIV actually compete? This is where things get messy. People say LIV isn't real competition because it didn't grow organically. That's fair. It didn't earn relevance through fans. It bought relevance through capital. But here's the thing. Competition doesn't have to be organic to be effective. It just has to change leverage. And it did. Overnight, the PGA doubled and tripled purses, added guaranteed money, reduced financial risk for elite players, created no-cut events. Those changes didn't come from vision. They came from outside pressure. So when someone says LIV didn't improve golf, I think that's too simple. It forced changes that were resisted for years. Whether you like the source or not, the effects were real. At the same time, and this is important, LIV didn't build a self-sustaining ecosystem. Viewership certainly lagged. Formats confused casual fans. Team identities never really landed. And that matters too, because leverage without sustainability eventually fades. And now we're seeing that tension play out. Players are leaving, merger talks stalling, everyone's exhausted. Now that doesn't mean that LIV failed. It means infinite capital doesn't fix misaligned incentives. So the part that really surprised me as a new golfer is golf places a huge amount of risk on the players. Miss the cut, no paycheck. Caddies, boy, do they eat that risk too. Caddies really get a much better deal in LIV than they do in the PGA. So when LIV removed cuts and guaranteed pay, some people called it welfare golf. And from the outside, that felt strange. Guaranteed contracts exist everywhere else. Why don't we call the NBA a welfare league? At the same time, and this is where the nuance matters, stakes are the currency of spectator sports. Remove pressure without replacing it, and the product flattens. So I don't think cuts are morally superior, and I don't think guarantees are corrupting. I think both extremes miss something important. The PGA externalized risk too far. LIV reduced pressure too fast. The hybrid we have now feels awkward. So fragmentation, the real loser is the fan. This is the part that feels the most obvious to me. As a fan, especially a newer one, I want to see the best players in the same events regularly. Fragmentation kills that. It doesn't matter whose fault it is. It doesn't matter who started it. Split fields make everything smaller. Majors feel bigger now, not because they improved, but because everything else fractured. That's not growth, that's contrast. Now let's talk about players and loyalty and hypocrisy. I struggled with the loyalty argument because the loyalty usually implies reciprocity. The PGA treats players as independent contractors, access, not security. So expecting loyalty without guarantees feels pretty much one-sided. At the same time, players who took massive checks and then complained about consequences didn't exactly help their case. Everyone acted rationally. Everyone looked self-interested. That doesn't make anyone evil. It just makes the illusion of alignment disappear. So is this a reckoning? I don't think so. Reckonings imply learning. What I see is a stress test, a brittle system that was stressed. It cracked. And instead of reform, we got survival behavior from everyone. So here's where I land, and this is just my take. LIV didn't save golf, and it didn't ruin it either. It exposed ethical inconsistencies, structural fragility, misaligned incentives, and how quickly morals appear when power shifts. The PGA wasn't clean. LIV wasn't noble. Players weren't saints, and fans weren't objective. Golf has always been a business pretending to be a tradition. LIV ripped off the costumes, but didn't know what to wear next. So if this argument is about ethics, let's apply them consistently. If it's about sustainability, be honest about losses and engagement. And if it's about the soul of the game, maybe admit golf never really agreed on what that soul actually was. Maybe that's okay. So thanks for watching. If you found this useful, please consider liking and subscribing. It really helps. Check out the affiliate links in the description. And lastly, as always, bad swings are part of the deal. Good data tells you what to do next.